you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Teresa Scandifio, and I'm the Director of Learning here at TIFF. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to tonight's special event, Roxane Gay on Pretty Woman. To begin, we would like to acknowledge that tonight's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. Also, a thank you to TIFF's donors and members for supporting TIFF's charitable mission of bringing the power of film to life 365 days a year, and for supporting Share Her Journey, TIFF's 5-year commitment to increasing participation, skills, and opportunities for women behind and in front of the camera. On behalf of TIFF, I would also like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa, and our major public supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto. So I wanted to give you a quick rundown for tonight's event. Our guest of honor, Roxane, will briefly introduce the film and then return for an extended onstage conversation with our friend and host, Amanda Parris, and then there will be an audience Q&A afterwards. Following the Q&A, Roxane will join us for a book signing just outside the cinema. If you'd like to purchase any of her books, we have a selection of her work for sale at the concession stand until 10:30. And now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our host for tonight. By day, Amanda Parris writes a weekly column for CBC Arts, hosts 3 CBC television series, CBC Arts Exhibitionists, The Filmmakers, and From the Vaults, and is the radio host of Marvin's Room on CBC Music. By night, she writes stories for the stage and screen. Over the course of her career, Amanda has worked as an educator, a researcher, an actor, and a community organizer. She is a playwright and the co-founder of the award-winning alternative education organization, Lost Lyrics. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to our host tonight, Amanda Parris.
Hi. Wow, what a great crowd. This is awesome. I am super excited about this. Who here has seen Pretty Woman? Who here has never seen it? Ooh, oh my God, that's really exciting. That's super exciting. So I've seen it a million times. I may or may not say the lines of the film as we're watching it. You might hear me. But I've never seen it on the big screen. And I've never seen it in an audience of people. So I'm really excited to share this experience with all of you and with our special guest this evening, who is Roxane Gay. So, Roxane Gay is not afraid to speak her mind. The best-selling author of 80, An Untamed State, Difficult Women, and Hunger, a Memoir of My Body, she is known for her reflective, no-holds-barred explorations of feminism, race, gender, and social criticism. In Bad Feminist, her 2014 New York Times best-selling collection of essays, Gay laid out a wise, funny, and deeply empathetic vision of modern feminism, acceptance, and identity, flaws and all. In 2017, she made history as the first Black woman to lead a Marvel comic, writing the new series, Black Panther, World of Wakanda, with the poet Yana Harvey. That deserves some noise. She is a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times and the editor of the recent anthologies, The Best American Short Stories and Not That Bad, Dispatches from Rape Culture. Her writing has appeared in Harper's Bazaar, McSweeney's, the Los Angeles Times, and Salon. She is currently working on film and television projects, very exciting, a book of writing advice, an essay collection about television and culture, and a YA novel entitled The Year I Learned Everything, which we cannot wait to read. Known for her Twitter clapbacks, definitely. When she finds the time, she dominates the occasional Scrabble tournament. The Guardian puts it correctly in print, on Twitter, and in person. Gay has the voice of the friend you call first for advice, calm and sane, as well as funny. Someone who has seen a lot and takes no prisoners. So please, let's represent Toronto. Do not be stush right now. Join me in welcoming the brilliant Roxane Gay.
Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you for, oh, she disappeared. Oh, wow, I just do that, just make people go away. It's my power. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight, Toronto. Your weather. What the fuck? landed in the rain, and now it's snowing. And look, I'm from the Midwest. I lived in the UP for 5 years, so I know weather. But come on. But I'm so thrilled. When they asked me to do this, they wanted me to pick a romantic comedy because this is about romantic comedies. And I love romantic comedies, but I also love to fuck with people. And so I do. And I wasn't sure, like, if they were serious or not, because, like, really? But turns out they were serious. And so Pretty Woman is legitimately my favorite movie. I have gotten more messages since this was announced saying, are you serious? I'm absolutely serious. I think that a sex worker meeting a billionaire and falling in love and living happily ever after is the dream. So I'm truly excited to be able to share this groundbreaking feminist film with you. But it's also just romantic, and it's absurd, and romance is absurd. And so afterwards we'll be talking about the movie, but I hope that you all enjoy it, and thank you for coming out tonight.
So I was just saying to Roxane in the back that I'm so mad at myself because I was crying. Like, what? Why am I crying? Like, I haven't seen this a million times, but...
Perfect movie is perfect.
Oh my God.
Just deal with it.
Like, I forgot how good the score is. It's so good, and I don't know, anyways. So how does it feel for you seeing it? I know you saw it like 3 days ago as well, but how does it feel seeing it in a theater with an audience again?
It feels so good. It does. I mean, because the parts that I find hilarious, people found hilarious, like her math, like, like how is it $100 an hour and $300 a night?
It makes no sense.
I mean, and then it's like, oh, but $3,000 a week. It's just something. It's just so cute. And then like there are little moments like when Daryl's holding onto the briefcase. When Richard Gere goes for a walk.
Could have put it in the car.
Bruh, you don't have to hug it. It's all right. You can let it go. Shit. It's just a perfect movie.
It really...
And then, like, he just acts like he's really doing her a favor by getting her an apartment. The audacity. Just who do you think you are, other than a billionaire? Like, other than that, who do you think you are?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so for all of us in the audience, it's clear because we just watched this, but we also have an audience that is watching through live stream. So just to say again, you saw this movie when it first came out.
I did.
It was your favorite movie then?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you love this so much?
It's so aspirational. You know, I loved it because I love all romantic comedies. It doesn't matter, like, what the story is. As long as the two people at the end fall in love, that's fine with me. And in fact, when I was deciding which movie to air, it was either going to be this or Imagine Me and You, which is the cutest little queer movie you ever did see. And I just love a happy ending. Mm-hmm. And this movie has a happy ending, and it's absurd. Like, it's absurd. First of all, that she was going to San Francisco.
Like the next day.
Like, no, you didn't learn that much in a week. And just, I just love the happy ending. And it's actually a really well-made movie, despite the problematic nature of how it deals with sex work and how it deals with gender and the fact that Black people are only in service roles. Other than all of that, it's a really tight screenplay, just from a craft perspective.
It is. I mean, when the film came out, it was criticized a lot by a lot of the film critics that saw it at the time for a few things. Some of the things that you've mentioned, the ridiculous portrayal of sex work, also the sort of valorization of capitalism as well, too. But it still endures. And so I want to talk a little bit about your journey as a fan and how it has evolved over time.
I've been consistent. I loved the movie then, and I love it now. You know, I'm able to love things despite their bad issues. And, you know, in the spectrum of problematic pop culture, this is actually not that bad.
There's a spectrum.
I just amuse the shit out of myself. But you know, what I appreciate more is the craft now. And what I appreciated when the movie first came out was the fairy tale. I love fairy tales. And so I just always have been able to overcome the real problem with this. And the real problem with this movie, I mean, there's so many, but you know, it makes sex work seem safe, and that all customers look like Richard Gere and will take you to the Regent Beverly Wilshire, which is now a Four Seasons. And that's not how it works, especially for a woman who's walking on Hollywood Boulevard. And so I think I think that we need to be careful, because what it does is glamorize sex work and make people think, oh, maybe this would work out for me. Yeah. And I think that it's just, that's not healthy. People need to understand the realities of sex work, and that there are plenty of good things about it, and there are also dangers. And this movie makes it just seem like there are none.
I was reading a more recent review of the film that explored the character of Vivian as a character that kind of challenged the feminism of the era for when it came out. So she is somebody who kind of maybe has bad math, but is still, you know, setting her own demands and what she wants. She's very vocal, but she's also sexy, and she's sensual, and she has all of these things, and she's ambitious, and she's able to balance all of those things. Would you agree with this particular critic who thinks that Vivian's character is maybe a little bit ahead of her time?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the many things I love about the movie is how empowered she is. And, you know, in that moment when she's angry and she's like, I say who, I say when, like active consent was a real part of this movie. Mm-hmm. And that was always appealing to me. And it remains appealing to me now. And I do think that the way she acts is pretty feminist. And especially for the time. I think it came out in, when did it come out? 92? Yeah. 90. You know, 1990 was a really different time. Even though you don't think it was, it actually really was. And for a woman to be sexy and to be self-actualized in the ways that Vivian is self-actualized is not something we saw in a lot of movies other than like Terminator. Which was also around that time, and Sarah Connor was totally badass, but she was asexual. And it was like you couldn't have one or the other, and here you had a character, even though a lot of people wouldn't necessarily have framed it that way, who was pretty badass and sexual, and that combination I have always found very alluring.
In your writing, you've talked about how fairy tales demand a lot from women, but for men, it's often very mediocre. So if you could rewrite this movie a little bit and make over Edward so that he was deserving of Vivian, what would happen?
Oh, you know, first of all, he would wear better suits. And, you know, he would be less of a condescending prick. Right. He's actually the least interesting part of the movie. He's so bland. Like, when you look at it, it's like, girl, I know why he's attracted to you, but why are you attracted to him? All he does is talk on his phone and say condescending things. And he has really bad timing. One of the things that is most offensive to me is that she is sitting on the carpet, enjoying her picnic, laughing, and then he's like, suck my dick? How dare you? How dare you?
And she keeps looking back because she still wants to watch.
She wants to watch the movie. And I think it's the most heartbreaking scene in cinema because her face falls when she's like, oh shit, I gotta clock in. It's just terrible. And so I just wish he was like, I wish he actually had more character development. Like, what does he do with his free time? What does he look like in jeans?
Even their day of relaxing, he's still in a suit.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can see the film continuity error because she takes his shoes off.
Yeah, totally.
And then they're right back. Yeah. And he's reading this boring, like, where did that book of Shakespeare come from?
Not even Shakespeare quotations.
Is that where, like, did he pull that out of his briefcase? And so I think that we're supposed to think that she should just be grateful that this man is going to treat her with a modicum of decency. Well, no, like, let's have some personality, some texture. What kind of music do you listen to? What does your house look like? Are you a slob? Like, there's so many questions that she deserves to have answered that are never answered because the premise is, oh, he's a billionaire and he sort of doesn't treat you poorly. Let's raise the bar for men.
So you mentioned for most rom-coms, some trying to challenge it, like My Best Friend's Wedding, but for most rom-coms, they end up happily ever after. So if you had to imagine what happened to Vivian and Edward after their beautiful exchange on the fire escape, what happened?
They make it. Those kids make it.
You're such an optimist.
Yeah, no, I think that Vivian starts to run a foundation for sex workers, and the foundation is grounded in serving sex workers where they're at instead of trying to like get them to leave sex work, rather making sex work safer and advocacy, testing, and that kind of thing. I really think that she would go all out and run a foundation, and she and Edward would be super happy and have like 3 babies.
3 babies. And Edward would stop tearing companies apart and building them.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Like, he would start with ships, but he would build all kinds of things. Okay. I think he would also build some skyscrapers. I feel it.
In Levi's.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back a bit. We've been talking about Pretty Woman, but can you define a rom-com for us? Because I feel like a lot of people don't even know what the genre is. So can you define a romantic comedy?
Yeah, I think it's actually a phrase that's inaccurate because most of them are just dramas. And there's a little bit of humor. We don't even like know how to talk about them in terms of categorization, but it's a movie where historically boy meets girl, boy or girl falls in love, there's an obstacle, and then a happily ever after. And so the formula is really tried and true, but the formula actually works. And what we see with various attempts is people trying to like switch it up. Let's make
You
her...
didn't say that with a lot of pleasure.
Well, because they do it so badly. Let's make it a black chick dating a white guy. Let's make it a plus-size woman. And it's just so all like lacking in originality. And again, people become these categories of person: manic pixie dream girl, and hero guy, or ambivalent asshole who discovers he has a heart because a woman helps him excavate his bullshit. It's just...
That is
so
a strong
bad.
one. That
it
comes
is
up
such
a
a
lot.
strong one.
Yeah.
Like, men get away with so much. Like, she had to be charming, interesting, someone he could take to an elegant restaurant for a business dinner, someone who would look really good in absolutely anything, and he gets to just show up in his double-breasted suits. Oh, God. It's a lot.
It is. But that's a really good breakdown for us. Because you answered all of my other questions as well, too. But other than Pretty Woman, what other films would list high on your list of favorite rom-coms or the ones that did it right?
One of my favorites is Imagine Me and You. It's just a sweet movie about this young woman who is at her wedding day. She meets the florist and they fall in love. It's like, whoa. It's messy from the beginning, but it's done by it's done in that genre of English film where everyone is like really attractive and lives in really nice, cute little London apartments, and so that's nice. Oh my God, I'm totally blanking. I actually didn't like My Best Friend's Wedding because, I mean, first of all, Dylan McDermott. And not in life, in the movie. Just again, like, he was so mediocre. Yeah. He had 2 women chasing after him, 2 flawless women. Yeah. Come on, let's just raise the bar. Another movie I do love is called Something New with Sanaa Lathan and some random white guy. But again, it's kind of problematic. But it's still fun, and they fall in love, and he makes it work. But again, bland guy. Yeah. Unremarkable. I have yet to really see a romantic comedy where a man is worthy.
Interesting. So 1977 was the last time a rom-com won the Best Picture category. It was Annie Hall. And a lot of... Yeah. And, you know, when you talk about rom-coms just in general, a lot of people, you know, kind of say, oh, yeah, it's like my guilty pleasure. They don't even want to say it too loudly that they love rom-coms. But you have said it with pride. You are here owning it. Why do you think rom-coms receive so little respect from the industry and also from society?
Because people think that suffering is what is needed for grit and for integrity and for quality. And that's actually not the case, though it can be. Oftentimes, these sort of gritty movies that win Oscars manipulate trauma in order to create a story. And I'm like, if you have to go to trauma to create narrative interest, then you're a lazy writer. And a lot of these romantic comedies don't have to rely on trauma. They rely on just normal life and love and living. And of course, they have these idealized versions of life and love, but they're still interesting. And people treat things that women like as frivolous. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to misogyny, as usual, because women are the primary consumers of romantic comedies. And so anything women are interested in is terrible, and then people are like, oh, Dunkirk, which, I'm sorry, I recently watched that tragedy on a fucking plane, and I was just like, end me now, just crash this plane right now. That movie was so terrible. In every way. It was boring. It was poorly shot. There were barely any words. I'm just mad thinking about it. And because it's a man movie, everyone's like, oh, most brilliant film. Give it the Oscar. Fuck you.
Okay.
It was terrible. It was terrible. I'm so mad about it.
I could not tell at all. So you talked a little bit about how tragedy and trauma are often the things that people go to, and particularly when it comes to, for all film, but then when you look at Black film that's celebrated and, you know, deemed a critical success, that is often also the case. When you look at the Black films that have been nominated for Oscars in recent years, whether it's 12 Years a Slave, even Moonlight to a certain degree, The Butler, like all of these films kind of rely on these images and these stories of suffering. But Black rom-coms have been around for a while. Why do you think it is that particularly images of Black people loving each other outside of the context of struggle are so rarely celebrated?
Because we have a very singular narrative about what Blackness is. And right now people think, and historically, people have just thought Blackness, it has to be about suffering. And I've actually written a couple essays about this because it drives me crazy that we need this trauma to understand the Black experience instead of Black joy. Love Jones, brilliant romantic comedy. It's not a comedy, but it's a romance.
Romance, a beautiful romance.
The Best Man. Best Man's what? The Best Man 2.
Yeah. Best Man Holiday.
Yes, thank you. And there are actually a lot of these movies, and they're really good. And what makes them even better is that they're done on ridiculous budgets. These people work their asses off for a fraction of what the mainstream counterparts will make. And then afterwards, these are box office hits, and white people are surprised. Like, oh, who knew? Well, Black people knew. And we actually have seen it this year with Crazy Rich Asians, which I thought was wonderful. And setting aside the problem of the wealthy Chinese in Singapore, which is a real issue, but it was so beautifully done. And again, people underestimated it, as they are wont to do. And it's only the second film ever with a majority Asian cast. And it's ridiculous that we don't allow ourselves to see people of color, Black people specifically, but frankly, all people of color, loving each other and having lives and having fantasies. When do we get that space?
So you brought up Crazy Rich Asians, which brings me to my next question, which is this year felt like the rom-com again became a topic of conversation in a large way, partly for that movie, but also for another movie, which I really loved, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which I would argue that maybe Peter Kavinsky might be like a good male lead. I think he is. Maybe you don't. But
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I'm like, he was very unproblematic in lots of ways. Like, he didn't drink and drive. He respected her boundaries. He listened to her. Okay, I'm going to be done. But not only did they have diverse leads, particularly in the case of To All the Boys I Love Before, they introduced a very unproblematic love, which didn't have possession and was kind of progressive to a certain degree. Every now and again, a movie comes around that changes the game for the rom-com genre. This movie changed the game. Do you feel like this year has potentially changed the conversation around what happens in the rom-com genre?
Yeah, I definitely think this year has revitalized the genre, and now studios are scrambling to find these stories, as usual, when they're right in front of you. But I'm really encouraged. Netflix has released a few really good romantic comedies
And some
this
really
year.
bad ones, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
The Kissing Booth, don't ever do it.
I haven't seen it.
Don't do it. Don't.
I just haven't.
I only saw
am going to
15
see
minutes.
To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and the book is really great. And the writer is incredibly talented. So I'm really encouraged. And I just hope that we see more diverse casts, more movies. Like, even though I didn't like it, Love, Simon, which I thought was also in that genre, and was very progressive and very good. And I don't quite know why I didn't like it. It's a very good movie. It just wasn't for me. There was something about it that just, I think I'm too old for high school. I want to see old people getting down.
Right.
Let's just go. Oh, book club.
Oh, right.
I love the shit out of that. No, like, give me some old white women in flowy clothing. Every time something's got to give. Really, anything Nancy Myers
I was
does.
about to say that is just your, that's your deal right there.
Wheelhouse. But, like, I would love to see black women doing that.
So I'm going to pass it over to the audience, but I just had one last question. I feel like this is a period where cynicism seems to reign supreme in the world. But you wrote for your film note, I recognize the fallacy of fairy tales and still I believe in them. Why do you still believe in fairy tales?
I mean, if we don't believe in joy and in love and in hope, like, what are we doing? I think we have to have clear eyes about the state of the world, which is really quite terrible right now. But that actually encourages me to be hopeful even more, because my cynicism is at an all-time high, and I'm a Libra, so I need to balance it out. And I'm choosing to balance it out by continuing to believe in fairy tales and just to hope, like, that for all of us there's a happy ending, and not the glossy happy ending, but a real happy ending that is sustainable. Because, you know, like, most of these rom-com relationships are fucking over in 3 weeks. Except for No Strings Attached. They're still together. They are. I mean, Ashton Kutcher's very attractive. Oh, no, he's not even the one in No Strings. Yes, he is. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there were 2 movies that came out that year that were fucking interchangeable. The one with Justin Timberlake and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I watched them both. No, but 2 Weeks Notice is also very good. Sandra Bullock and Hugh Grant.
Yeah.
I will see anything Hugh does.
Same,
Anything.
same.
Oh,
Hashtag
I'm just
Team
like,
Hugh.
English daddy, let's go.
With that note, let's turn it over to the audience. I think we have some mics that are going to come around, so put your hand up and the mic will come to you.
I will just riff on any movie. I've seen them all.
Hi. Oh,
Hi.
my goodness. I love you so much.
Go on.
Oh, my God. So what's my question? Okay. I just want an excuse to talk to you. This is amazing. My question is, so you write about trauma so powerfully, and your books change so many people's lives, and then you love rom-coms. And I'm wondering, and I'm asking this as an aspiring writer, do you feel that the two, that both types of content are compatible in one piece? Like, can you have a piece that has, real life trauma explained, but then somehow have a fairy tale ending at the end? Would you?
Absolutely. Almost every story in my collection, Difficult Women, has that. Because obviously trauma is something I like to write about, and intellectually, like I get something out of it. It's difficult, but I like it. But almost every story in that book, and even an Untamed State, is a fairy tale. And the original story that the novel grew out of was called Things I Know About Fairy Tales. Because I think trauma is such that you tend not to believe that there's anything beyond the trauma. And so as a writer, I always want to find that thing beyond the trauma, that thing that someone gets after surviving or in the middle of surviving. That joy and memory, painful memory, are compatible, that you can have both. Because I think for a lot of people, we see these cultural narratives around trauma where you experience a trauma, you're fixed, and you move on. But for those of us who experience a trauma and get as fixed as we're going to be, but aren't completely whole, what do we have to hold on to? And how do we believe that joy is available to us? And so I always try to include that. All right, hi.
Hi, I also want to have an excuse to talk to you because I love you. And you have literally been my pokeroo for like the 3 times you've come to Toronto that I know of, and I finally managed to make it. So yes.
Ah, yes. It
my-
feels so good.
Right, yeah, it really does. Because you had a very strong opinion of Dunkirk, of which I have not seen because
Trash.
I had an inkling that was going to be like that. I now need to know your opinion of The Revenant, which I hated. I'm so sorry. Whoever
The
likes
Revenant
it, I'm sorry.
Is so bad.
Yes.
It's
Thank you.
so bad. It's the never-ending story.
Oh my God, that was me.
Like,
after 15
okay,
minutes, yeah.
fucking Pioneer times were terrible. And The Bear was terrible. First of all, sir, you have an infection. That was like, okay, we should have given him the Oscar for Titanic, but we didn't. And so we're going to give him the Oscar for this very terrible, terrible movie. And I was really excited because the meaty guy was going to be in it. And then he was like kind of unrecognizable and grunting. Tom Hardy, thank you.
Who was also in Dunkirk in a plane, I think,
Yeah,
for
he
most
was.
of the movie. Yeah.
Waste of time. Just give me Tom Hardy naked. Like, let's just fucking cut out the middleman.
Next question. Oh, yeah, we're up there.
Yeah, I see you.
Hi, it's Niney. We met earlier.
Yes, we did.
I love that you said you're a Libra because we love rom-coms. I think it's like in our DNA.
Oh, it is. We're the worst.
We're suckers for it. And I really appreciate what you shared because it's making me feel less ashamed because people have made me feel ashamed for loving rom-coms.
Get you people.
Yeah, right? So my question is really simple, or maybe not, is what are your top 5, other than Pretty Woman, rom-coms, and why?
Imagine Me and You, because it's just so sweet and tender. No Strings Attached, because I love when people say, I'm not going to fall in love, and then they fall in love. Love Jones, because it's fucking sexy. I did, but thank you. You've Got Mail. You've Got Mail because, bless their hearts, the book industry front and center. And I actually just watched You've Got Mail last week again, and just watching, I remember those days of emailing and the
sound,
modem,
the dial-up.
and then like living on the boat, and like it was this like cultural critique of Barnes and Noble, and then oddly enough, Something's Gotta Give. I love Something's Gotta Give. And I love it because it shows that you can be older and sexual and have just as messy a love life as someone 40 years younger.
And that Keanu Reeves might fall in love with you.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, that was my favorite part. And quite frankly,
Leaving Keanu
would
Reeves.
she really leave
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves in Paris to go with fucking smelly old Jack Nicholson? I'm sorry, but that's when you just know sometimes movies are not realistic.
That's the absurd part. Okay, we've got a question over here.
Hey, hi, it is me.
There we are.
Hello. So I'm wondering, you spoke about rom-coms that try and be different and have an unhappy ending. Do they still count as rom-coms? What are your thoughts on that? Like, I feel like La La Land tried to be like, we're so different. Look at us with our unhappy, strange ending, and we're not really a musical, but then like did every tropey thing about a musical. So
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on La La Land, and are rom-coms that try and be sad at the end still rom-coms?
I couldn't finish La La Land, I'll be honest. It was just like not for me. And I actually love musicals, so it just wasn't the movie for me. And so time is precious, and I just couldn't finish it. I watch pretty much everything on planes because I'm always on a plane, and TikTok. But I do enjoy these movies that don't necessarily have a happy ending sometimes, but I'm gonna sneeze. Thank you. I have a cold. It's really great. But like 500 Days of Summer, I think does really interesting things with complicating the genre, and I think it's a really beautiful screenplay and a really well done movie. So I think they're interesting, and I think there's room in the genre for them. And I think anything that complicates our understanding of genre can be really useful.
We're up at the top.
Okay, great. Don't worry, I'll get to as many as I can.
Hi, Roxane from the very back of the theater.
Hi.
Just want to say thank you for coming. And also, I think thinking about the idea of rom-coms, it makes me think of also Afrofuturism and Afrofuturist works. So I'm just thinking about if you have any works of Afrofuturism that kind of work in the same way that rom-coms function for you in that idealized space.
Yeah, I'm just getting into Afrofuturism because I am. And I think what I love about Afrofuturism is that it actually addresses what you were asking earlier about trauma and blackness. It creates different kinds of narratives. And if we can imagine this idealized future, what can Black people do in a world where we're unfettered by the systemic constraints of this world? And it's intriguing. And so I first got into it when I started writing World of Wakanda for Marvel. What would life be like? And can someone bring me a tissue? What would life, please, and thank you. What would life be like in a world that does not know colonization? And it becomes the most technologically advanced country in the world. Of course it does. So great. And so I'm just interested in that space. And I've recently read this book called Binti that is really great. And I'm excited to read the next one. Thank you, Christoph. And what else did I recently read? It's not really Afrofuturism, but sort of Children of Blood and Bone, which I loved.
Afro fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, just like the movie. So in addition to Afrofuturism, I'm loving this Afro fantasy, and there's a book coming out soon by Marlon James, Red Wolf, Black Drag. It's not it, but
title.
something red and black, and I've started it, and it's boy, he's gonna have a very big year. It's brilliant. He's brilliant, but this book in particular, people keep saying he's the next George R.R. Martin, but he's the first fucking Marlon James, and he blows that little throne thing out of the water.
We only have time for one more question. So whoever gets the mic, it's right in the front row. Okay.
Hi, Roxane. For one thing, I just want to say that you're one of my heroes, and I'm so honored to be here in this space with you. I was really nervous meeting you, and I was thinking, what am I going to ask her? What am I going to ask her if I get the mic? And I'm just like, well, why don't I ask her maybe a more creative question? What's a question that you've always wanted to be asked, whether it's about Pretty Woman or your work or culture or, just whatever you're passionate about, and what would be your answer to that question?
I think I would love to be asked, when am I going to write a romantic comedy? And the answer is, I hope soon. I want to. I just have to find the time, but I want to write a screenplay of my short story North Country, and I want to make it into. It's not really a rom-com, but it's a rom-com. It has a happy ending. There's some nastiness in the beginning, but it's actually one of my stories that has no sexual violence in it, really, which I love, and I'm trying to do more of because I'm just growing as a person and as a writer. But it has this really happy ending and this really great love story, and so Oh, good question.
No, that's a good one.
You know what?
The question
That's
was
right.
who was her fantasy
They can't
cast?
make us leave.
They can, but
That's just it. I mean, they
you
can,
also have some
but-
books to sign as well too. Yeah,
they
okay.
can kind of make us leave, but they can't. We're going to pretend that was all part of the same question. That's a really good question. I am really into an actor named Cynthia Erivo.
Oh, she
right now.
is goddess. Yes.
I just saw Widows, and that was off the chain. That movie, when the twist happened, I was just like, what? I didn't see that coming at all. And maybe I'm just not good at movies, but so I didn't see it. So I would love, and I want to write, and I'm actually writing a movie for her. She doesn't know this, but I am writing a movie for her.
She knows it now.
It's an action film. But I would love to see her in a rom-com because she's so tight and muscular that people are going to be putting her in a lot of action roles. But I want to see a woman like her get to be sexy and sensual on the screen. And so she would play the woman. And as for Magnus...
Magnus, wow.
Just thick country boy. Tom Hardy would work well. He would. You know who would play Magnus? Oh, I do know. He played Drago in Creed 2.
This new guy, yeah.
Big Nasty? Big Nasty is his Instagram name. And he has this delicious, fierce body, but you could even see in the movie, and it's probably because he may not be the world's best actor, but he has very kind eyes. And I love him already.
It's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Roxane Gay. And I hope you feel better soon. So Roxane will be signing books outside in just a moment. And
Yes.
thank you all for being here and watching Pretty Woman with us.
Thank you for coming out.